Except there was no blood. Instead, I saw a stream of tiny bubbles gushing to the top of the reservoir, accompanied by a peculiar, high-pitched noise that I had no explanation for. Welcome, horror buffs, to your ultimate destination for a heavy dose of bone-chilling encounters that will make your heart race and skin crawl uncontrollably. Are you ready for an intense rush of fear and thrill like never before? Then let's dive straight into the stories. The story was posted by Unalloyed Saint Trina on r/nosleep. I thought I accidentally killed my wife. In reality, she may have never been alive in the first place. Yeah, all right, Ma. Loud and clear. Your heart aches for a grandchild. I pulled the phone away from my ear and shot Camilla a wink as she paced into the kitchen. With a knowing smirk, my wife tiptoed over and leaned in to eavesdrop. The dishes could wait. A well-tread inside joke, Mom's ability to maintain a conversation with herself was legendary. Like a car with the brakes cut and a brick on the accelerator, unintelligible speech continued to cascade from the receiver, despite the lack of input on my end. Hand over her mouth to muffle a giggle, Camilla proceeded to the sink. With no more audience, I put the phone back to my ear and attempted to reinsert myself. Ma, listen, we're trying. We've been trying, and it'll happen when it happens. Love you too. Bye. I slid the device onto the counter with one hand, using the other to massage my temple. A sigh billowed from my lips, forceful and involuntary, like hot exhaust from a stalled engine. From her position in front of the running faucet, Camilla twisted her neck to meet my eyes, swinging wispy blonde curls over her shoulder blades. As two blue-white orbs locked onto me, my wife produced a wry grin and clicked her tongue. She's a real firecracker, that one. Don't know how your dad gets a word in edgewise. Oh, it's simple. He doesn't, I replied with a chuckle. Contented that she had dragged a laugh out of me, Camilla moved her head back to midline to focus on scrubbing the lasagna-stained cutlery. A surge of guilt churned in my stomach, and I stepped forward to rub her shoulders. She doesn't mean to harp on it. She's just really excited that the possibility is on the table. But I think Mom forgets how up and down your health can be, and that getting pregnant might not be as quick and easy as it was for her. On the edge of the V-shaped plot of skin revealed by her cherry red sundress, I could see the outline of an implanted port. Camilla had been receiving infusions through the device since she was a teenager. I never got a straightforward answer to what exactly those infusions were, no matter how I asked the question. She didn't love talking about her condition, so I only knew the basics. Something to do with her immune system attacking her nerves. All things considered, being left in the dark about Camilla's health gave me a bit of nervous heartburn as her newly betrothed. That said, we'd been married for 2 short months and dated for only 5 months prior to that. Some would say our relationship is still in its infancy, despite its newfound legality. I figured if I expressed interest while also respecting her privacy, answers would surely follow down the line. A gleam of light reflected from something on her wrist, extracting me from thought. Oh, sweetheart, you didn't take off your watch. Let me get it for you. Don't want it to get waterlogged. As my hand approached the timepiece, her left hand shot up and out of the soapy water, darting to intercept me. Startled by the suddenness of the reaction, I jerked my palm away before it even contacted the accessory. As strange as that was, Camilla's facial expression was even stranger. She looked just as surprised by her actions as I did, her brow creased with an intense bewilderment. Slowly, she lifted her right arm out of the sink. Camilla rotated the extremity, clockwise and then counterclockwise, gaze fixed on her watch, as if she was examining it for the first time. After a moment, her expression melted into one of cautious understanding. Right. I guess that's makes sense. Rather than letting me remove her watch, she took it off herself, wrapping it delicately around the base of the faucet, noticeably out of reach from me. Never in my life have I met a woman more enraptured with what appeared to be a luxury wristwatch. I'm not a watch guy, so I'm assuming it's high-end. I mean, the damn thing stays on during sex. You'd think she had stapled the Hope diamond to her wrist based on how preciously she treats it. This made her casual attitude towards it getting wet even stranger. It's like her condition, I thought. I'll learn more in time. I just have to be patient. As I moved to retrieve my phone from the counter behind Camilla, my hip accidentally collided with her elbow. She winced in response.
Oh, Camilla, I'm so sorry. My head's in the clouds.
Have to watch where I'm going. Are you all right? I peered into the half-filled sink, fearing I'd witness a streak of crimson rise from the bottom of the basin like the beginning of an oil spill, except there was no blood. Instead, I saw a stream of tiny bubbles gushing to the top of the reservoir, accompanied by a peculiar, high-pitched noise that I had no explanation for. A muffled hiss was emanating from under the water, sharp and continuous. As Camilla dredged her injured wrist from the depths, she didn't scream. As the hissing became crystal clear, no longer dampened by the liquid's density, it didn't appear like she was in pain. What happened became apparent. When I sideswiped my wife, a small kitchen knife had punctured the underside of her wrist, but the laceration wasn't dripping with blood and plasma. Pressurized gas was escaping from the slit. Her hand flopped limply downwards as she held it in front of her, like a latex glove that was being carried by the collar. Inch by inch, more of her arm melted into a gelatinous cast of its previous shape. The back draft rushing from the aperture appeared more like smoke than air, viscous and thick rather than transparent. Paralyzed by the hallucinatory scene, I generously inhaled the vapors. They were hot and acrid, searing the inside of my mouth and nostrils. The pain knocked me backwards into the fridge door, and I swiped at the fog surrounding me like I was being assailed by a swarm of bees. By then, her entire arm was flaccid and held at her side, flattened digits just barely able to touch the tile floor. Camilla observed the ongoing deflation of her extremity, the dead serpent that was now grafted onto her shoulder, with an alarming indifference. She tilted her head up, with her blue-white irises once again locking onto mine. There was no panic in her features. At most, Camilla exhibited a passing curiosity, a furrowed brow with a contemplative glint shining behind her eyes. The emotional dissonance was violently uncanny. Her face then began to involute, with her nose the first feature to plummet into the developing crater. It was like the front of her skull was being struck by an invisible cannonball, with the progressing concavity distorting her visage into something wholly unrecognizable. Bile leaped up the back of my throat as her head crumpled into a bouquet of rubbery flesh sprouting from her collarbone. Her chest then folded into her abdomen. With a final crescendoing hiss, the last of my wife evaporated into a chaotic mound of elastic tissue and empty clothes on the kitchen floor. I'm not sure what I did once the room became silent. I may have screamed. I may have wept. I may have done nothing at all, instead electing to wait patiently for this fever dream to break. What I remember next is the voice on the other end of my cell phone, asking if I needed emergency services. I don't recall saying anything to the 911 dispatcher, but I must have, because she informed me that the police were on their way. The phone abruptly vibrated, the sensation somehow reaching into the ether to grasp my soul and force it back into my person. I gasped loudly. With dread and adrenaline dancing in my veins, I examined the screen. Camilla was calling. Every cell in my body buzzed with furious anxiety. From where I was standing, I could see her phone, face up, and to the left of the sink. It read "Hubby" on the outgoing call screen. Unsure of what other options were available to me, I answered the call. Cam, is that... Hey, love, could you kindly pick me up off the floor and... The cheery sing-song voice that trickled from the speaker was my breaking point. I threw my phone from my hand with all the ferocity I could muster. It crashed against the side of our apartment's oven, its screen becoming black and dead instantly. In the brief silence that followed, a bluish glow caught my attention. Somewhere within Camilla's shed exoskeleton, a tiny silver firefly had whirred to life. I cautiously stepped forward, trying to determine where in her molt the light originated. Using a spatula, I pushed a layer of folded abdominal skin out of the way to reveal the source. Her port. As I examined the implant, it blinked 3 times, which was followed by a small droplet of light spinning around its edge. In response, Camilla's phone activated once more. It was attempting to connect again with my newly destroyed cell phone. My spine straightened and my hand involuntarily released the spatula, causing it to clatter against the floor. I digested the nightmarish ordeal with a glacial slowness, observations thawing into realizations only after an excruciatingly long amount of time. Whatever that implant was, it wasn't just a catheter, if it was even a catheter at all. A set of knuckles rapped against the outside of our apartment door. "Police! Here to perform a wellness check. Is anyone there?" shouted a gruff male voice. I felt my mind writhe and fracture, practically atomizing under the crushing weight of my current uncertainty and indecision. How can I possibly explain this? Is he going to think I skinned my wife? Am I going to jail? That was quick. Is he actually the police? What if he's someone the port called? Through blistering vertigo, I replied, "I'm okay. One moment, be right there." Finally mobilized by fear, I stood over Camilla. It was nearly impossible to tell what parts of her were where in the mess. I wanted to avoid pulling her by her face, but the absurdity of that concern hit me like a freight train on second thought. It didn't matter where I anchored my grasp, I just needed to start pulling. Centering myself with a breath, I bent over and seized a leathery chunk in each hand. Despite being reduced to human taffy, my wife still weighed as much as she did when she was alive. If she was ever truly alive, I thought. Thankfully, her skin slid softly over my kitchen's terrain. I prayed that whoever was on the other side of that door couldn't hear the quiet squishing that I was unfortunately privy to. Piled haphazardly in the darkest corner of the room, I draped a navy blue peacoat over the puddle that used to resemble my wife. I then moved to open the door. The burly man standing on the other side seemed like a police officer. He at least had the uniform. "We got a 911 hang-up from this address not too long ago. Everything all right in there, son?" I tried to adopt a disarming smile, but my facial muscles wouldn't fully cooperate. The expression that resulted did me no favors. A disjointed, schizophrenic smirk manifested above my chin, the corners of my mouth becoming tremulous thorns that refused to act in synchrony. "Yes, I had some chest pains. They're gone now." He scanned me from head to toe, no doubt looking for probable cause. I fought back visions of Camilla appearing behind me, dragging herself into view with a deflated hand. After what felt like hours of silent inspection, he spoke again. "Next time, call us back. If it turns out you're doing okay." The officer hesitated on how to phrase the end of his sentence. I was in dire straits, and he could tell just by looking at me. Distress, however, was not illegal. I gave him an unconvincing nod, and he walked away. When I could no longer hear the clinking of his gun holster and the dull thuds of his boots against the ground, I locked the door. Resting my forehead against the wood of the frame, I let myself briefly dissociate. Before long, however, that anxiety began to bubble at the base of my skull, forcing me to confront reality. With every ounce of my being, I prayed to turn the corner and find no navy blue peacoat cloaking something large and amorphous in my kitchen, which would confirm my developing psychosis. Insanity was preferable to this hellscape. Camilla could at least visit me in a sanatorium. Faintly, I could see the outline of that silver firefly under a heap of fabric and skin, and I accepted that I would have no such luck. It took me about 30 minutes to heave Camilla into the confines of our walk-in closet. Primarily, I focused my energy on the task at hand, as opposed to theorizing about the meaning of it all. There would be time for that later. Right now, she needed to be hidden from view. Once I had her sequestered, however, I couldn't help but examine Camilla. The impossibly surreal nature of her transformation helped me cope with and detach from the circumstances to some degree. This wasn't my wife, the woman I had fallen hopelessly in love with. This was some cruel oddity, an intense and extreme prank. It was Salvador Dali's horrific reinterpretation of Camilla, not the flesh and blood woman herself. These thoughts helped, but only to a point. The portion I couldn't reconcile was her face. From where she lay, congealed in the back of the closet, the right half of her face was visible. Her features were still taut, but slightly withered, like a weathered Halloween mask. The crease at her nose hid the rest of her face from me, existing somewhere deeper inside the pile. Even though it now appeared like a wintry marble stitched into high-quality latex, her right eye seemed to track my movements, watching my every step. I didn't think she was actually watching me. Camilla's hollow cadaver had not moved an inch since its deflation. I thought I had killed her. That said, I couldn't absorb her gaze, even if she was dead. Her glassy right eye inspired a skittering, burning madness in my soul that threatened to dissolve me completely if I allowed the flames to rise unabated. I covered her limp, vacant half-face with a t-shirt and resumed my inspection. There were two, for lack of a better word, sacks fixed on the inside of Camilla. Circular outlines that clearly had their own internal space. One appeared to be located under her chest, and the second appeared to be located under her upper abdomen. A heart and a stomach, maybe? Next, I ran my fingertips along the length of the right arm. Her shell was sturdy and firm, like thick plastic, save the underside of her wrist, which had more of a silky consistency. Maybe the area served a ventilatory purpose. But then, what about the watch? Leaving the closet, I locked the doors behind me and checked the timepiece that was still hanging at the base of the tap. When I placed the obsidian strap up to a light bulb, sure enough, it seemed to be equipped with thousands of tiny holes. Protective, porous metal, I theorized. As I lingered in front of the sink, my detachment from the situation abruptly waned. Standing where she had only a few hours ago, the floodgates' destruction was inevitable. I thought of her laugh, her smile, her empathy, and her kindness, causing bitter tears to fall softly into the basin. Then, in a flash, I reconsidered our entire relationship. Was she once human, and then someone replaced her with a near-perfect replica? Was she always like this? What does she want from me? A crack of thunder detonated from somewhere deeper in the apartment. My heart swam, trying to remain afloat in a new deluge of liquid terror. The closet door had slammed against the top of the frame. Initially, I couldn't determine the mechanics of what had transpired and caused the noise. Then, I saw it. Or rather, I saw her, under the doorframe. Camilla, a sentient lake of skin, was squeezing herself under the closet door. However she was moving, it involved bouts of propulsion that generated enough power to splinter the edges of the resilient wooden door as it collided with its frame. Another 3 booms occurred in rapid succession, and then she was free. Her method of transportation was beyond uncanny. It was mind-shatteringly alien. Camilla's gait would start with hundreds of spikes materializing under her, their birth thrusting her tissue upward. She would then hang briefly in the air, giving the appearance of a giant, flesh-toned soccer cleat. The mass of skin would then tilt forward, momentum causing Camilla to fall a few inches in her intended direction, reabsorbing the spikes in the process. The cycle would then restart, a full rotation taking only about 3 seconds. Gradually, Camilla was hobbling down the hall and towards me. Defeated, my body slumped to the kitchen floor. I leaned against the cabinet below the sink, awaiting whatever was to follow. But Camilla passed by me. Her intended destination was, apparently, the guest bedroom. It did not take her long to get there. From behind where I was sitting, I could hear her ramming against something, repetitive thuds emanating from the room. It took me a while to reconnect my muscles to my nerves. Their connections transiently severed by the recent torrent of caustic horror. When I was able, I followed Camilla into the guest bedroom. She was struggling to open a drawer present on the bed frame, incapable of melding her flesh around the knob to pull it open. Camilla's face wasn't visible from my vantage point, instead submerged somewhere within herself. She could still sense me, however. Her attempts stopped once I entered the room. She tumbled backwards and remained still, wordlessly asking for help. I stepped forward, internally bracing myself for Camilla to pounce on and consume me. But she never did. When I pulled the drawer open, I understood. Our air mattress was inside, which included a detachable motor designed to inflate the bed. I haven't managed to reform Camilla, not yet, but I'm getting closer. The motor could partially inflate her, but it's not powerful enough to pressurize her completely. I'm desperate for answers, but our communication so far has been limited. She can't speak while she's deflated. It seems like Camilla can whisper when she's partially inflated, but only weakly, and I could not hear her over the motor. Her port, whatever it is, can use Camilla's phone to call other lines, but it apparently cannot act as a phone by itself. And my phone, unfortunately, remains broken. Maybe I'll try reading her lips later today, or I'll go to a payphone and have her call me there. My planning was interrupted when I felt Camilla's phone vibrate in my pocket. It was an incoming call from my mom's number, probably reaching out to my wife after being unable to reach me. Her call was the catalyst to a series of epiphanies. She was the one who introduced me to Camilla. I assumed the sacs inside of my wife were a stomach and a heart, but she has no blood, so maybe she doesn't need a heart. Maybe it's a stomach and a uterus. My mom has been obsessed with receiving a grandchild. When I answered the call, I shouted my initial query before she could wind herself up.
Hey, Mom. Where did you say you met Camilla again?
Dead air came back as her response. Maybe she could hear the motor running in the background, or maybe it was just something in my voice that implied what I knew. Either way, she was stunned. I could hear her breathing on the other line, but seconds later, she still had said nothing. Mom may be a chatterbox, but she's a terrible poker player. She's only truly silent when she's manufacturing a lie. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more thrilling horror stories like these. Also, share your thoughts on the story in the comments section below. If you want me to feature your own story on this channel, you are most welcome. Send your story to the email provided in the description below.